Hello again, it's Celeste. I'm here with another video relating to caregiving and post-stem cell transplant issues. As you know from previous videos, my husband Paul had a stem cell transplant back in May of 2020, this year, and he's been recovering. The recovery is very slow. And today I want to talk about one of the complications that happens with stem cell transplants sometimes. I don't have a lot of medical expertise on stem cell transplants and the things that happen as a result of them. I am a nurse, but I work in a NICU, so I don't really know much about adult medicine. So what I'm saying here is from the viewpoint of a spouse of someone who's recovering. I don't have any special knowledge. So I may have things a little wrong in my understanding, just FYI. What happened is that Paul has suffered a complication that happens often with stem cell transplants. It's called graft versus host disease, or GVHD for short. It's a complication that happens when the donor stem cells begin to activate and react with the host. So the way it was explained to me is that unlike a typical transplant, where let's say you had a lung transplant, in that situation, your body can reject the transplant because your body sees it as something foreign. And usually patients are given medication to help lower this incidence. In the case of a stem cell transplant, it's a little different because the massive chemo given to the patient before the transplant wipes out their immune system. And then the new cells are infused into the body where they will hopefully graft or take hold and become part of the person's new immune system. So what happens then is that sometimes the graft, the stem cells from the donor, can be activated if the person is sick or for whatever reason. And it's as if they wake up and they're like, where are we? Oh, and who is this guy? Attack! It's as though they are rejecting the host. So it's a little bit different from the regular transplant. And in Paul's case, he was very lucky that his sister donated her cells because they were 100% match. It's not that the cells match exactly completely. It's that certain key cells match, and it's called HLA. It's certain specific cells that match. And in Paul and Marianne's case, it was 100% match, which was great. This usually reduces the incidence and severity of GVHD, but Paul did get it. Paul was feeling pretty good. He had recovered from the medication interaction he had had about a month ago, and everything was going well. He was feeling motivated enough to do a little project in our kitchen, and he was working on this on his birthday, which was the 20th. And then we had the girls come over and we had dinner together, and it was really nice. It was a really nice birthday celebration. The next day he was kind of wiped out, and we thought it was just because he had been on his feet a lot and there was a lot of excitement and he did the work on the kitchen and all that. By Tuesday he was still really tired and exhausted, and that should have been our first clue. But we just thought, well, he has no reserves, so he didn't recover as well as a average person would. Tuesday night, though, this was the 22nd, he had been sleeping all afternoon, and in the early evening he was looking for a thermometer because he just didn't feel right. And he hadn't eaten all day, and me, trying to be a good caregiver, I encouraged him. I said, you've got to eat something, our first mistake. So I made him the protein shake that I did a previous video on. And usually he likes that, but he was having a lot of trouble. It was taking him a long time to finish it. Not that I was pushing him to finish it. I just wanted him to get something in his stomach. And then all of a sudden he became ill and vomited. Sorry for the TMI. The thing that's weird is that Paul really doesn't vomit. He really doesn't. It's just, and which is weird to me because I get a migraine and there I am. But he vomited and everything came up and he was so sick and I knew it was not good. So I paged the doctor, and I did talk with the doctor, and he gave us some suggestions, and he did send a prescription for us to pick up the next day if Paul continued with these weird symptoms. He wanted him to start it. And that medication is called budesonide, which is a sort of a mild type of steroid. Typically, it's usually given as an inhalant for asthma patients, but this is in a capsule form. He started the budesonide the next morning because his symptoms, he wasn't vomiting, but he started having the other end. We were in contact with the doctor over the course of the next couple of days because it just seemed like things were not right. And he was beginning to get a teeny bit of a rash, which is another classic GVHD symptom. And they weren't exactly impressed with what we were reporting to them. By Friday, it was looking the rash was looking a little more pronounced. We had a telehealth visit on the Friday after his symptoms began. They still weren't impressed enough to want to start the steroids. They wanted to give the budesonide a chance to work. But Paul, that whole weekend, was just miserable with diarrhea. It was terrible. And also his gums became swollen and kind of coated in white, and he couldn't taste food. And this was nothing to do with COVID. This was all GVHD. So he went through the weekend. He was miserable. It was awful. And there wasn't much I could do. I could help him. I could give him his meds. I could encourage him to eat. But I felt very helpless, and it was a rough weekend. So we finally contacted the doctor after the weekend and kind of begged them, please let him start on the real deal steroid, prednisone. And so they finally agreed. And so he was started on that. They gave him a mouth rinse for his gums. The steroids were started on Tuesday, and then we actually went into the doctor on Friday. And at that time, they took a look at him and they were very impressed with his rash, which isn't as bad. Like if you Google GVHD rash, it looks horrible. And his didn't look that bad, but I think it was just the fact that he had the rash along with the GI symptoms. I think they were more impressed with that in spite of him having diarrhea for 10 days, which is kind of weird, a mild rash. I don't know. But again, it could just, maybe they have it marked on a severity scale, and if you hit the rash, it's bad. I don't know. So they also gave us some ointment to put on his rash, and the decision was made to keep him on both the budesonide and the prednisone combo until he started feeling better. And this week, he is doing a lot better. He still had a bit of a rough weekend, but things were resolving, and by Monday morning, he was feeling much better and he was working. He did have to knock off work early because he was so wiped, and it was just from having diarrhea all the time. Obviously, he lost weight. The only good thing is that his labs weren't messed up, and his hemoglobin is above 13. First time in almost a year that his hemoglobin is close to within normal range. So today he's actually feeling pretty good. Today is October 6th, and he's pretty energetic. He's been working. He has had a little bit of trouble sleeping, and so the doctor recommended that he take melatonin, so he's going to start that tonight. Besides being a little tired, he's doing pretty well. We do need to ask the doctor how long he thinks this is going to go on. Paul has done some research on his own, and it sounds like once you get to the year anniversary, this sort of fades away. Some people will have it where they'll have relapses for a couple years after. The hope is that around the 1 year mark, this will stop. So yeah, that's kind of one of the icky things with stem cell transplant. We were hoping he would squeak by and not have this, which probably was a little unrealistic, but you can hope. And I just hope that when they start to wean the steroid, that he will not go back into this whole diarrhea horror. Yeah, it was awful, and I'm sorry to be so graphic, but man, that's what it is. The whole GI system, from the gums all the way down, awful, awful, horrible thing. And it was very disappointing because it happened right when we thought, okay, he's getting better. It's, things are going to be good. And then bang, he's hit with this setback. I suppose that's the nature of a stem cell transplant. As far as how I have felt throughout this, I mentioned before that I felt helpless because I couldn't do anything for him other than getting his meds together, trying to encourage him to eat, trying to be emotionally supportive. I did start getting pretty depressed this past weekend, and I was coming off of a migraine. I do have medicine for my migraine, which I did take, and I was feeling so low, and I kind of felt at the time that my life was sort of useless. I had no feelings of wanting to check out or anything like that. Nothing serious. It wasn't a major depression, but I was just feeling really bad. And I felt kind of, well, I wasn't doing much because of the migraine, so I felt like unproductive. And I don't know if the unproductiveness made me feel depressed or if the depression made me feel unproductive. Who can say? But Saturday night, I was having trouble sleeping, and I kind of said to myself that it seemed like I was just running out the clock on my life, that I was waiting for Paul to get better and for Tyler to finish high school and Robert to get married and, all that. And then, then it was okay. I could die. I mean, that's kind of how I was feeling. Again, not suicidal, but I was just feeling like I wouldn't care. It was like, I've had it. So obviously I was pretty depressed, and the difficulty I was having was that I was given a supplement to help with my mood. It's called SAM-E, SAM-E. And I wasn't taking it because I have so much trouble swallowing this particular brand of SAM-E. It would get stuck. I would feel it and it would get stuck. So I've since ordered a different brand that's supposed to be more easy to get into your system. But until that comes, I just restarted the SAM-E. And I also found out that I was taking it at the wrong time of day. I thought I was supposed to take it at night, but it can cause insomnia. So I've started taking it during the day. Anyway, but prior to that, with this whole feeling of running out the clock, I kind of also thought, well, I'm running out the clock and I don't feel like I'm doing a very good job while I'm running out the clock, if that makes any sense. And that was sort of a depressing thought, but for some reason, just becoming aware of that, aware of both feelings and acknowledging it, it kind of helped me snap out of it. I think maybe it was just this unspoken feeling. And when I look at it realistically, I'm not running out the clock because I have a lot of hope for the future and I want to be around. I want to hang around and see what happens. It's a very disturbing time in our history, but it's also very exciting and has a potential for, I feel like we're witnessing history here. So I don't really want to check out. And I do sometimes let things slide, but I'm not perfect. And I don't think I'm the only one. As a caregiver, I think being emotionally drained because your loved one is struggling and having a setback, I kind of realized that I am doing a good job. I'm doing the best I can, and I've gotten him to this point, and I'm really there for him. So I woke up Sunday morning and I felt pretty good and I felt motivated. And so now my mood has been pretty good these past few days, and I hope it stays. I'm back on the SAM-E, and I hope that that will help as well. I think now I can move forward and maybe not get into this rut of feeling that I'm running out the clock. That was sort of a depressing place to be, and I'm glad that I'm past it. I've been rambling, so I think I'll wrap this up, and I hope that in the next video I'll be able to have a happy report of Paul weaning off steroids and not succumbing to these awful symptoms. Until that time, I'll see you later. Bye.